topic for today is chastity, or what I call the elusive okay.
Just hang around his neck.
That's a possibility.
Okay. Why we call it elusive? Because if you read the fathers, you'll find that so many people struggled with it for years and years and years. And there are so many tricks that the devil plays to keep people ensnared in sin. The first question that one should ask himself is, why did God create sexuality in man? I mean, some people say, why did God create this thing in me that starts bothering me since I am 13, and then I am not allowed to really take advantage of it until I am 25, and even after 25 I am still bothered by it and stuff like that. Bishop Moses, in an article in Al-Karaza that was written years ago, he tells us the following. He says God created sexuality for the sole purpose of preservation of the race in animals. Okay? Animals, sexuality in animals is only for preservation of the race. And that's why in animals they have a period in which they mate. It's called the period of heat. It's a couple of weeks a year, and after that there is no sexuality. It's only a couple of weeks, and after that there is no sexuality. They are sexually active for a couple of weeks every year. During this period, the female produces a certain scent that arouses the male, but after this, nothing can happen between them. It is not so in humans, because humans are the only members of the animal kingdom that are in heat all the time, all the year. And Bishop Moses gives us this answer. It is because God wanted humans to share and enjoy a holy kind of love that is likened to the love of Christ and His church. Actually, that's why God created sexuality. Because in the marital sexual relationship is so holy that the church made of it a sacrament. And it is a sacrament. St. Paul says, this is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church, because this relationship symbolizes the relationship between Christ and the church. And as great and as holy is the use of sexuality within marriage, the use of sexuality outside marriage is a horrible thing towards God. God looks with an approving eye on sexuality within marriage, but sexuality outside marriage is abhorred by God. Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed is undefiled, tells us St. Paul. But whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. That's in Hebrews 13:4. And again, flee fornication. Every sin that a man does is without or outside the body. But he that commits fornication sins against his own body. That's 1 Corinthians 6:18. So according to this, sexuality within marriage is uniquely blessed as a sacrament that emulates the love between Christ and his bride, the church, while sexuality outside marriage is distinct from any other sin because it defiles the image of the love between Christ and the church. St. Paul tells us, "Know ye not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them the members of a harlot? God forbid. When I commit fornication, I'm taking the members that belong to Christ and turning them into the members of a harlot." And St. Athanasius the Great gives us a wonderful analogy to the contrast of the use of sexuality within marriage and its use outside marriage. He tells us this. He says, if a soldier goes out to war and kills 20 of the soldiers of the enemy, he gets decorated. They give him a medal. But if he goes outside on the street when there is no war and kills one man, they hang him. That's the difference. What is the difference? I killed 20 people over there and you gave me a medal. Yes, but that's legal in war. But you kill outside the war, you become a murderer and you get hanged. It's the same thing. Within marriage, this is blessed and God blesses it. Outside marriage, it is so abhorrible in the eyes of God. There is no more evidence that human marital love is blessed than the fact that when God wanted to give us a description of the love between Christ and the church, or the human soul, which is the unit of the church, he gave us this in one book of the Bible called the Song of Songs. It's a book that's often misunderstood and often attacked. People who are non-Christians say that it's pornography, okay, but they don't understand. But there is nothing sinful or pornographic about the marital relationship because it simulates the love between Christ and the church. And that's what St. Paul is telling us. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. And the kind of love that Christ loved his church with is in the book of Song of Songs. And it's a very tender, loving relationship. Actually, it's very romantic. And that is an example for all of us. This is where marital sexuality differs from sinful sexuality. When St. Paul says, "Husband, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it," that is the trick. Is that in human marital love, it's a relationship of giving. While in sexual immorality, fornication and adultery, it's all about taking and grabbing. You see the difference? Christ gave himself to the church. In marital relationships, the husband and the wife each give themselves to each other rather than grab and take. Marital sexual love is about self-giving, not grabbing or taking. And that is what makes it holy, because it is Christ-like. Flee fornication, St. Paul says. But someone may say, "Oh, easier said than done." And I agree, because chastity is the most elusive virtue. You look for it and you think you've got it, and the minute you think you've got it, it's out of the door. The reason is that the Bible tells us to flee fornication. It tells us about the perils of fornication. Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God. Period. So here, in this sweeping sentence, the Bible condemns all sorts of sexual immoral acts. Fornication here means premarital sex, having sex before you are married. Adultery means extramarital sex, means having sex with someone other than your wife or your husband. They are 2 degrees of one sin, except that the punishment is different. Okay? A fornicator commits sin against himself or herself, his own body, and against the partner with whom he is committing fornication. So that's a double sin. While an adulterer or an adulteress commits sin against his own body, commits sin against the person with whom he is committing fornication, and commits sin against his lawful partner in marriage, the husband or the wife. So it's a triple sin. Homosexual acts are condemned here when he says effeminate and abusers of themselves with mankind. That means both parties to the homosexual act are condemned here. Yeah, it's same-sex fornication. Okay? And the Lord adds to this list of sexually immoral acts all sorts of lustful passions. Whosoever looks upon a woman to lust after her has committed adultery after her already in his heart. And what goes for the man goes for the woman. If a woman looks upon a man to lust after him, she has committed adultery with him in her heart. And the same thing, if a man looks upon a man to lust after him, or a woman looks upon a woman to lust after her, it's still the same sin. Today, the list is even gotten bigger, because we have something that wasn't there in the time of Jesus or St. Paul. We have pornography, which became such a major problem, even with little children. You wouldn't believe this. I had a 7-year-old coming to me to tell me, Abuna, I'm always thinking about the private parts of girls. Because he saw something on it. 7 years old. You see how bad the thing. Of course, pornography leads to sexual fantasies and masturbation, and all of these are among the problem of sexual immorality. While condemning these immoral acts, the Bible does not explain to us how to fight against them. For this, we have to draw on the experience of the Desert Fathers. They are the experts on the subject. They went to the desert, they fought the demons, they were all the time assaulted by passions that are evil, and they gave us their experience in wonderful readings that I will try to summarize to you. First of all, covering the basics. According to the Desert Fathers, there are some preliminary steps that one has to take before his quest for chastity. And here is what they say. First of all, they say, control your tummy. Control your tummy means don't overeat. That's what they tell us. They tell us that it is very unlikely for someone who is overcome by gluttony to be able to achieve chastity. That is the consensus of opinions of the fathers. A full tummy ignites the passions of the flesh. It makes sense that if one cannot be able to control his passion for food, he will not be able to control the more difficult sexual passion. That's the first step. Control your tummy. Second thing they tell us, control your sleep. Oversleeping, say the fathers, contributes to an increase in the sexual drive. And I think scientifically that can be proven. One has to fight against oversleeping in order to avoid falling into sexual sins. And the Bible actually advises us against oversleeping. In Proverbs 6:9, we are told, "How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou rise out of thy sleep?" And again, Proverbs 20:13 advises us, "Love not sleep, lest thou come to poverty." If you love sleep too much, you will become poor, because you will miss work and you will get fired and all the rest of it. And I know someone who missed his exam because he slept over. So, control your tummy, control your sleep, and then control your temper. The fathers insist that if we cannot control anger, we will not be able to control our carnal desires. The fathers usually classify sins and they assign demons to them. And they tell us that anger and fornication belong to the same category of sins. They call them excitable sins. You get excited to anger and you get excited to fornication. They are called excitable sins, and they are the same category. And one of the fathers even goes on to tell us that the demon of anger and the demon of fornication are one and the same. The same demon that excites us to be angry is the same demon that excites us with unholy thoughts. One who is easily excitable to anger will be easily excitable to the dictates of the flesh. Here is what the fathers tell us about that. This is in the second conference of an abbot called Abbot Kairimon. As a person progresses in mildness and patience of heart, so also does he in the purity of the body. And the further he has driven away the passion of anger, the more tightly will he hold on chastity. You see, they go together. If you can't control your temper, you can't control your carnal desires. There are two more factors that I would like to add. The fathers didn't talk too much about, but I would like to add them from my experience with young people. And these are drinking. Of course, the fathers never spoke about drinking because nobody in the desert even dreamed about drinking. I mean, that's... Alcohol is a very potent stimulus of the passions of the flesh. Resistance to sexual sins dissipates. It dissolves when one allows himself or herself to drink even moderately. The great Shakespeare, you're all familiar with Shakespeare, realized this and wrote in one of his plays describing the effect of wine on sexual behavior. He says, "It creates the desire, but takes away the performance." And that's true. Through the many years I have served as a priest, I have heard many horror stories, but this one stands in my mind. It concerns a 16-year-old girl of German descent who was very religious. She used to come and babysit for my children when they were little. We were very pleased with her because she used to read the Bible. Can you imagine a Canadian girl reading the Bible to your children? We were very happy for her. One day her mother told her, "You don't have a life. Why don't you attend this neighborhood New Year party?" And she agreed. Someone gave her this funny tasting orange juice and she drank it. Not only did she lose her virginity on the New Year Eve, but also she realized later that she became pregnant. And who is the perpetrator? A married man with kids. The mother refused to allow her an abortion. The mother was retired. She was a retired nurse working with me in the same hospital. And she went back to work and told her daughter, "I'm going back to work in order to feed you and feed your son or daughter to be." 6 months later, she died of a heart attack. And this is a true story that stands in my mind. And it happened sometime in the 70s. So drinking can just loosen all your resistance and make you do things that you never thought you would do. The second thing that I would like to speak about is dancing. Dancing or dances are the most common way for relationships to start. Okay? Again, it suffices here to tell one of the many horror stories that stick up in my memory about this. It was the 80s, and I had to go to the USA to serve instead of another priest on vacation. And after communion, a 13-year-old Coptic girl came to me, and she was crying. She went on crying and sobbing, and I took her to the office of the priest, and I tried to calm her down, asking her about the reason for her tears. Finally, she started talking. I had sexual intercourse. Turns out she went to a dance. Her parents were enlightened, They said, "Oh, let the kid have some fun." She went to a dance. She danced with a boy for a couple of years older than her, and before the night was over, she had lost her virginity. I asked her, "Did he rape you?" First question I asked, "Did he rape you?" She said, "No. No, Abuna. I wanted it as much as he wanted it, but I just couldn't resist." Let us return now to the fathers. They tell us that even if we control overeating, oversleeping, and anger, we still need another virtue before we can attain to chastity. One of the fathers said, "You covet chastity, then covet humility." You covet chastity, then covet humility. Because without humility, you cannot obtain chastity. And the commonest problem in the fight against desires of the flesh is self-reliance. I am going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I will have victory. Let me give you a dictum about spiritual strife. Anything that starts with I is doomed to fail. Unless we abandon relying on ourselves, we will fail and fail and fail again. No one has ever been able to control his carnal desires by self-control. If anybody tells you that self-control will do it, he is cheating you. Here is what one of the fathers says in this regard. We are unable to acquire chastity through our own efforts, unless while exerting ourselves constantly, we are taught in the school of experience that it is granted to us by the bounty of divine grace. For this reason, one should persevere tirelessly in his efforts, so that he will deserve to be freed from the assaults of the flesh, thanks to the divine gift. He must not believe that he will attain by himself the bodily chastity that he seeks. What he is saying here is that I should try and try and try, and the trial itself, whatever I do, is not going to lead to chastity, but it will make me deserve to be freed from the assaults. One day God will have mercy on me because he sees me trying very hard, and he will come and say, okay, I will take away the fight. And the fight will cease. It's not that you'll become chaste. The fight will cease. God will take away all the war that is happening with you. In trying to explain this concept to young people, I usually use an analogy. And I tell them, imagine a little child trying to reach a toy placed on a table. The table is too high for him to reach, so he tries to stand on his tiptoes, but it doesn't work. He starts jumping up and down, but he cannot reach. He even tries to climb on some object or another, only to fall and hurt himself. Then, totally frustrated, he starts to cry, and his father, who has been watching him, then reaches for the toy and gives it to him. The little child did not get the toy by his own efforts, but the efforts inclined the heart of his father to help him. That's exactly what happens with God. When God sees us so frustrated, trying so hard to attain to chastity and completely unable, he will come and say, okay, I'll give it to you as a gift from me. The problem is that we do the same. We try and fail. Then in our frustration we cry, and God will give us a respite from the fight. God will take away the war from us. But sooner or later, the devil will suggest to us that we did this by our own efforts. And once we admit this thought, we lose everything and we are back to square one. The most amazing thing about this is this keeps repeating itself, and we keep on repeating the same mistakes without ever learning why we keep falling back. Okay? And Abbot Kairamon has this to say about this state of affairs. Listen to this. This is an analysis of what happens with us. For each one of us who contends against the spirit of fornication, it is a notable victory not to expect relief through our own efforts. You have to completely abandon this idea that your efforts will give you any relief. That is not easy, even for the experienced ones. Even the experienced ones, the saints, cannot attain to this. For when purity smiles on them ever so slightly, they immediately flatter themselves in the depths of their conscience by a pride that subtly slips in. They think that they achieve this by their own diligent zeal. Thus, it is necessary for them to be deprived of heavenly protection, to be oppressed by these passions which the divine power had extinguished, until they realize by experience that they are unable to attain the good of purity by their own strength and toil. It's what happens. I have been pure for a month. Hey, that's great. I really did it this time. Bang, I go back. Because I think that I did it. Again and again, the mercy of God will give us a glimpse of purity because we are suffering. And God sees that we are suffering, and He gives us a little bit of purity. And again we will fall into the trap, stealing the work of the grace of God and ascribing it to our own effort. This goes on and on and on until we finally realize that our efforts are worthless and that only God's grace can give us purity. What can I do when I fall in this trap? Because it happens to all of us. First of all, you have to realize that God allows these falls for your own good. Second, acknowledge that your pride is the reason for the fall. And ask God to give you back His grace. And again, here is what Abbot Kerimon says. When someone has begun to rejoice over an extended period of purity, believing that he can no longer fall away from his virtue, he will start boasting within himself. But when having been abandoned by the Lord for His own good, the Lord abandons us for our own good, he realizes that the state of purity in which he placed his confidence is abandoning him. Let him return at once to the author of his own integrity. And then he comes and tells us, one has to be trained by God through these oscillations. You know what oscillations are? Ups and downs and ups and downs. One has to be trained by God through these oscillations until he is confirmed by the grace of God in the purity he is seeking. Okay? These oscillations may take years and years before reaching true chastity. But these oscillations are useful because they give us experience not only in fighting against fornication, but also against pride and self-righteousness. Okay? God is allowing us to fall and fall in order to teach us not to be proud and self-righteous. Do not be dismayed if you have been falling again and again in this trap. For we are told that it is very difficult even for the experienced. You know, there is one of the great women of the desert. It's called Amma Sarah. You know, we call Abba for a monk in the desert. If she is a nun, we call her Amma. Amma Sarah, she is in the Synaxarium, one of the great women ascetics of the desert. Fought against fornication for 14 years until God granted her freedom from this passion. And so did St. Moses the Black. He also spent about 15 years fighting before God had mercy on him and relieved him from that war. Finally, when we are humbled by the many times we thought that we have prevailed, only to discover that we did not, we fall into a state called littleness of heart. صغر النفس, littleness of heart. We feel so miserable, and we admit defeat and our total inability to win this war. It is only then that God intervenes and grants us a reprieve out of His pity. Now that we have been exceedingly humbled by our dismal performance, grace surprises us. And the temptations do not bother us anymore. It's not that you become stronger. You'll find that you're not tempted anymore. Temptation goes away. There are no temptations anymore. And that way you know that this is God working in you. then we feel this wonderful warmth in our heart. Because now we know with great certainty that this sudden death of the sinful movements of the flesh is a gift of grace totally unrelated to our own efforts. My own efforts just soften the heart of God to give me this as a gift. Okay? Like any other virtue, how to struggle for chastity. Like any other virtue, prayer should be the first mainstay of the struggle to attain chastity. We have to show God that we really desire chastity and that we are not just paying Him lip service. You should develop hatred for impurity, because you cannot fool God by asking Him to give you purity while deep inside you enjoy sin. Sometimes we say, oh God, please give me purity, but deep inside me I don't really want, because I still enjoy it. Don't worry about that. Even St. Augustine fell into this. St. Augustine was a fornicator, and he used to tell God, God, give me purity, but not now, because I haven't had my fill of pleasures. Just give me a few years to enjoy it more. Sometimes we do the same. But what if you can't reach this stage? Some kids tell me, I can't. I don't hate sin. I like it. And what am I going to do? Some young people say this, I really want to repent, but I cannot bring myself to hating sin. Well, go to God honestly and tell Him about your predicament. Say with the psalmist, create in me a clean heart, O God. Create in me. I don't have a clean heart. My heart is still desiring sin. But you create a clean heart in me. We have one of the prayers of the church. It's called the prayer of the oblations. It's said in the morning offering of incense. It's a beautiful prayer asking God to reward those who have offered unto God various things. But it also asks God to reward those who desire to offer but have none. The priest says, and those who desire to offer but have none. Suppose someone wants to bring a gift to the church, but he is so poor that he has none. The desire to offer itself is a gift. Take your cue from this prayer. Throw yourself at the feet of the Savior and say to Him, Lord, I am one of those who desire to offer but have none. I wish I could offer a true desire for purity, but I am not able. And He will come to your help. Beware of making vows of chastity to God. Sometimes we just are waking up, God, I promise you, I'm never going to do that. Never do this. Never make vows to God or promises. Don't promise God anything, because you will be promising something you have no power to get in the first place. Okay? So this is out. Vows and promises to God are completely out. Next to prayer and not making any promises, you have to put a sincere effort in the fight against impurity. It doesn't make any sense to pray to God to give you purity while you watch pornography, for example. How can you, that God, please give me purity, and you are after the net watching things? Or just leave your thoughts go on and on fantasizing about sinful things. But the thing is, do not look for immediate results for your so-called efforts. If you look for results, then this is pride and self-righteousness. Only God knows your progress. Fight as much as it is in your power without worrying about the end result. And remember, God will mark you on the effort and not for the results. Because God knows you are no match for the devil. And He does not expect you to prevail over the devil. God just wants you to fight courageously, even if you lose in the end. even if you lose in the end, if you put a good fight, God will say, well done. Abbot Theophan the Recluse, one of the great abbots, he's a Russian Orthodox abbot who lived in the 16th century. He gives us a very nice analogy for this. He says, if a soldier is surrounded by his enemies and goes on fighting until he is seriously wounded in the battle, he is decorated as a hero. Okay? They will not tell him, shame on you because you got wounded and you fell. No, you fought very well and in the end you fell. But if someone sees the enemy around him and he raises the white flag and surrenders, he is considered a traitor and he is killed. That is how God is going to judge you. If you fight, and even if in the end you fall, He will say, well done. But if as soon as the temptation comes in, you give in, and you raise the white flag, and you throw your armaments, then you are a traitor. Okay? Actually, you may feel that you have lost, but God will count this as a victory. You may feel that you lost, but God will count this as a victory. There is a nice story to illustrate this from the life of St. Anthony. When the devil came and beat him up. You all know this story. The devil came and beat him up and left him almost dead. And then one of the servants came and brought him to the church, and he looked up after he woke up from his coma, looked up and he saw the skies open, and he saw Christ sitting on his throne of his glory. And he felt so sorry for himself and told him, Jesus, where were you when I was being beaten? And Jesus told him, Anthony, I was right there beside you. But you were doing so well that I didn't want to intervene so that you don't lose your crown. You see, he thought that the devil won, but Jesus told him, no, you won. He may have beaten you up, but you won. Okay? There are some tricks that the devil will use in order to frustrate your efforts. You resist for a long time, and then you are overcome by sin. So he suggests to you, since all is lost, why not indulge some more, and then later on you try to stand up on your feet and fight again? Wrong. Since you fought with courage, all is not lost. You did not lose the war. You just got wounded in the battle. Do not give in and wallow in your impurity, because that is treason. Okay? If you lost while fighting, you deserve a reward. Do not give in to the suggestion that all is lost. To say it doesn't matter is to help the devil rob you of your reward. So stand up and resume fighting. Doesn't matter. I fought for a long time and then I got overcome. I will stand up and start fighting all again. Do not give in to the thoughts of defeat, because the Lord will help you if you do that. The other trick is this. He will suggest to you that since you are going to lose in the end anyway, so why bother fighting? I'm going to get you anyway, so why bother fighting? He tried this one on a monk. He told this to a monk, and the monk told him, well, one blow for you and one blow for me. It's like a boxing match. You give me a blow, I give you a blow. A boxer goes on giving blows and receiving blows, and in the end, he may be declared the winner. So the fact that you got a blow doesn't mean that you lost. You may go on giving one blow and receiving one blow, and in the end, win the match. The judge will tell you if you lost. Another famous trick is this. You fall into sin, you feel guilty, and you want to go back to God and ask for forgiveness, but the devil rebukes you, saying, how dare you show your face or talk to God after what you have done? And then he suggests to you, wait for a few hours or a few days until you are quote unquote clean and then pray. Wrong. You come to God as you are. You see, when the prodigal son, today we had the story, when the prodigal son decided to come back, he came immediately. He didn't say, let me change my clothes first. It was actually his father who gave him the clean robe. He said, take away the dirty clothes and give him the clean clothes. And you know something? Working with pigs. When I used to work in the emergency department, whenever someone working with pigs comes with an injury or something, the whole emergency department stinks. You just couldn't take the stench that's coming out of someone who is working. That's how bad the son smelled. But did the father say, oh, you're stinky, you smell bad? No, he ran and embraced him and took him and told him, I'll give you a bath and I'll give you new clothes that don't stink. So don't worry. Go to him even if you are stinky with sin, and he will embrace you in the same way he embraced the prodigal son. Okay? Father Lev Gillet. Has anybody of you read any of Father Lev Gillet's books? It's a Father Lev Gillet was a French guy who was Orthodox. He was an Orthodox priest, actually. And he wrote wonderful books. In one of his books, he wrote, my son, you must be certain that in the same moment that you are committing sin, God loves you. The devil may suggest otherwise, but he is a liar. It's a wonderful book of his called Conversations with the Savior. Beautiful books. So, as soon as you fall, immediately go on your knees before your loving Father and tell him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. And immediately, those are the words that open the bosom of the Father. Immediately, you will feel the warm embrace of the Father and his loving kisses. Once more, you are on your feet, fighting again with courage. Needless to say that this initial act of repentance, which is going on your knees and confessing your sin to God, does not take the place of going to Abuna and confessing and taking the absolution. Another trick he will try is this. He comes and says to you, how many times have you done this? Do you think God will go on accepting you every time you come running back to him? He will tell you, you've been doing this for years. What is this? You think God is sick and tired of you? Don't worry. God is never sick and tired of you. Why? Because when Peter asked the Lord, Lord, how many times should I forgive my brother if he sins against me and says I'm sorry? 7 times? What did the Lord tell him? 7 times 7. 400. You are supposed to forgive your brother 490 times every day if he comes and says I'm sorry. How much more would God forgive you? Even if you sin 490 times a day and come back and say I'm sorry, he will accept you. Don't worry. Because he wouldn't ask Peter to do something that he wouldn't do himself. So don't believe the devil when he tells you. And remember, you've been fighting for 4 years, 5 years, and you haven't won yet. Remember Amma Sarah, 14 years? That's a saint. So don't grieve. One person went to a monastery one time and asked a monk, told him, guys, what makes you so different from us? I mean, what do you do that we don't do? Tell me, how do you do your thingy? He said, well, this is what we do. We fall, and then we stand up. And then we fall, and then we stand up. And then we fall, and then we stand up. But that's what we do. He says, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is the story. You fall, and you stand up. And you fall, and you stand up. And you fall, and you stand up. This is life. Accept it, and go on. And don't be dismayed. Do not be over-grieved when you repeatedly fall. For again, Theophan the recluse tells us that this is a sign of pride. If you feel very upset that you fell, that means that you are proud. Consider the falls as a remedy sent to you by God to teach you humility. Okay? One of the fathers of the desert once said, defeat with humility is better than victory with pride. To be victorious and become proud is bad. But if you're defeated and you learn how to be humble, it's much better. And St. Isaac the Syrian, another great ascetic, tells us this. Some people please God by their virtues. Others please Him by their contrite and broken heart. So even if you fall into sin and show a contrite and a broken heart, this will please God even as if you were pure. Okay? Some people get discouraged because they have been trying without success. And someone asked Abbot Karimon how long it takes a person to gain chastity. So he answered him, whoever has withdrawn himself from every useless conversation has put to death all anger, concern, and worldly care, who does not overeat or oversleep, and yet does not believe that he will obtain by these efforts, but rather by the mercy of the Lord, such a person, it is not impossible to attain purity in 6 months. So where are we from this? Have we withdrawn ourselves from every useful conversation, put to death all anger and concern and worldly care, and we don't overeat or oversleep, and deep inside we believe that we will never attain to chastity by all of the above? If you do that, then it will take you 6 months to
Is there a chastity for dummies book?
Yes. But sometimes we can trick the devil. The devil tricks us, sometimes we can trick the devil. Like the monk that he used to get hungry while he is standing up to pray. And he is tempted to break his fast. So he used to tell himself, let us pray 2 more psalms and then we will eat. And then he prays 2 more psalms. And then he's hungry and says, well, maybe 2 more psalms and then we will eat. And then he goes, maybe 2 more psalms and then we will eat. And then by the time he goes on like that, it's his normal time to break his fast. So he tricks the devil. Okay? You can do the same. You can do the same.
Now that's easier said than done.
We can do the same. Let us go and do something else, and later on give in to whatever fleshly desire is attacking us. Let us wait till tomorrow. Let us wait. This is a good strategy, Okay. Just lengthen the period between falls. It's a good thing. I have achieved purity for a week. Let me try for 10 days. I have achieved it for 10 days. Let me try for 2 weeks. Make it your goal, not completely to be free from this. But this God will look upon as a very good thing. And if you go on like that and reach 1 month without sinning, you know something? God may come and look upon you and say, okay, you deserve. And He will take the war away. He's not going to give you purity. He will take the war away. You will find no war. And why does He do that? So that you don't think that you've done this by your own. He's not going to allow you to experience war and be victorious because you will become proud. You will suddenly find that you don't have any temptations. And this is from God. Okay? Finally, if you reach this stage, what should I do? If I reach this stage, if God comes upon me and makes me free from temptations, listen to this very carefully. This is the last thing that I'm going to tell you. One who has acquired chastity should rejoice at the purity that has been bestowed upon him, and should understand that he has acquired it not by his own effort and vigilance, but by the protection of the Lord. And he should understand that his body will persevere in this as long as the Lord mercifully permits it. He should never trust in his own virtue, nor be weakened by a flattering sense of security, knowing that he will be sullied. Sullied means get dirty again, if the divine protection departs from him for a little while. Therefore, in all contrition and humility of heart, one must pray ceaselessly for perseverance in this purity. That's what you should do, even if God grants you purity. Sorry if it took too long, but I hope you'll benefit from it. Any questions? You wanna stop this?
Yeah, we won't even hear the question.
Huh?
I guess we won't hear the question.
You want to hear the questions? Okay. Anybody has questions? Okay. Yes. It is disturbing. That's why reading the Fathers of the Desert is a very wonderful thing. Because these people had a university of spirituality, okay? They experienced the temptations. Someone who has been fighting against fornication for 14 years and finally he got victory can write a whole book on this, telling you about his experiences, his failures, where his shortcomings were, and that's where we get all of these things. I didn't write this from my own. I wrote it from the experience of the Father. And that's how great they are for our own. God allowed them to go into the deserts and shut themselves out so that they can write these wonderful things for us. Yes?
You said in the end there that after a long and hard struggle that God will take away the work from us and we won't feel temptation anymore.
Yes.
But why does it come back often though?
It comes back because, even if God takes away, always you feel you say, oh, it's been 2 months now I haven't fallen into temptation. That's God, this is your grace. It has nothing to do with my effort. This is your grace. Would you please keep your grace with me so that I don't fall again? But the minute, the second you think that, well, God's grace was great, but I really gave it a good shot through. Here you go. You'll go back immediately because that's what. But normally God would not come and give you this grace unless you have completely been frustrated and given up all hope. Actually, at the moment when you lose all hope, you say, there is no hope for me, absolutely. God will just surprise you. That you'll find that there is no war. The enemy is not there anymore. And then, because you have given up and probably have stopped praying even to God, asking Him to give you purity, you say, God, that's very strange. I don't have any temptations now. That's you. That's you. It's not me. It couldn't be me at all. And once you reach this, you will have lasting purity. But never ever allow yourself to think that you have done anything good. What you have done through so many failures is that you just softened the heart of God. so that He will give you His grace. Because only grace can do this. Okay? Yes?
The potential to win the war or to be victorious in this, isn't it a reflection of the spiritual relationship between the person and God?
Of course.
And if the answer is yes, as the person grows in his relationship, wouldn't that invite more temptations to condition the person?
Yeah. But as one grows in his spiritual life, he grows in experience also. And as he grows in his spiritual life, he invites more grace. St. Paul tells us, where sin has abounded, the grace of God has abounded even more. When the temptations increase, the grace of God increases even more. So even though, and like I said, in this particular sin, God does not give you victory. God takes away the war. And there is a psalm actually that says that God breaks the war to the ends of the world. And the fathers take this as that He breaks the war against you. There is no war anymore. You are freed from the temptation. You become free. And that's true chastity. And you will persevere in it as long as you don't get proud. And of course this will come when you hate sin. Because when you keep trying and repeatedly fall, there will come a time that you will hate yourself and hate sin and hate everything. And then God will come when you have just given up all hope that your own efforts will help you. God will come and just surprise you by taking away the war. The problem is that God does this 1,000,000 times, and every time we rob God's work and ascribe it to ourselves and say, well, I really tried hard this time. I really did it. Okay, back. But once I feel that